Hello and welcome back to the Pick Swap podcast. It's been a little bit. I'm excited to get moving again. Sean, how you doing, brother?
Doing good. I'm equally upset about the going down to the wire with the COVID infested Raptors, as well as Greg Monroe playing his mind off in the NBA again. So I don't know. Take the good and bad.
Yeah, that was funny, man. What a weird year it's been. You think about it. The Sixers recently played against Lance Stevenson. Then they played against like five guys that I don't think anyone knows on a roster with the Raptors
Yeah.
last night. While Greg Monroe's halfway across the country getting starters minutes with the Timberwolves. Very weird stretch here. But the Sixers do get a win in Toronto last night, ugly albeit, but it is a win. So how did you feel about that game? Although it was like it ended up being like one of those frustrating games you kind of assumed it would happen. The Raptors had like 10 guys out with COVID and injuries and all that. And then they ended up, sticking with the Sixers all the way down to the wire where Embiid had a late bucket and a stop and they ended up turning the ball over. So how did you feel after that gross win?
Yeah, it was a gross win for sure. I mean, the Sixers are just not a team that really steps on teams' necks and are able to kind of put guys away. So I go into pretty much every Sixers game at this point expecting to go down to the wire, which
Yeah.
in some parts is fun basketball, but at the same time, it's like it just should not have to take that effort. And it's so frustrating. Like Embiid, a great night out of Embiid overall, 36 points, played really well on the defensive end too. A big stop in crunch time to kind of secure that win, and you saw the energy, the excitement from him fist bumping, and so I guess at the end of the day, a win is a win, but definitely a little frustrating with how much effort it takes for every single one of these.
Yeah, and there was one point where Mark Jackson, who I thought did a really good job on the broadcast
Definitely,
last night,
definitely.
he mentioned early in the fourth quarter because the Sixers went on a little bit of a run at the beginning of the fourth. Like Niang had a good stretch and Furkan, um, and then he was like, "I think they should keep pushing the gas here so that Embiid doesn't have to come back in." And I like audibly laughed. I said, "He's gonna have to come back in." Like I think everyone knows that, and like I'm saying this to my family who like doesn't even care, but I'm watching the game. I'm like Embiid's gonna have to come back in. Let's not kid ourselves. And the Raptors, consequently go on a 22-9 run, bring it
Yeah,
in. They actually end up taking the lead at one point. The Raptors did
yeah,
late in
with
like
under a
the
minute, under a
yeah,
minute
like
to play.
55
Yeah,
seconds left or something crazy. And you know we're going to talk about the doc, and I'm sure everyone saw the doc and Keith Pompey clip. And I was watching the post game when that came on, and like it was funny to a degree. But man, do you think like how difficult is it? Do you think to put away that team? Like I know that it's the NBA, and I know that it's a difficult game, and this is what happens sometimes with the guys that are getting opportunities. They're playing their heart out the full game, trying to make a difference, obviously. But like, that team is not an NBA team that they're putting on the
right.
floor. Like, how were you disappointed that it came down to 5 points?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and this isn't an issue with like it's an any team issue. This is a Sixers problem with putting teams away. This is a
Yeah,
we don't execute well enough. We don't hold leads well enough. We just don't like do the little things that add up to like a victory and a conclusive victory. And this is coming on the heels of the Wizards game, which to me was the most business like win that there has been all year.
yeah.
Like it was awesome to watch that start to finish. The third quarter they won by a margin 29-17, and right at every time the Wizards kind of snuck back in, the Sixers had an answer and they had a way to add back on, continue to build on, continue to put them away. And last night in the Raptors game, there wasn't that at all. It was there just seems to be like a fight that teams have against the Sixers that just, and it's up to the Sixers to squash that and have the belief like when they are the better team. And granted, there are teams far better than the Sixers out, and like I'm not saying that is all world contender because they're simply not. They're a low end playoff team. But when we were playing a team like the Raptors last night, like the Hawks 3 games ago, these are teams that you should be handling fairly easily. Like these are guys they're picking up off the street to come and just fill minutes because of guys out with COVID, because of that. And I get that Andre Drummond's still out. I get Danny Green's still out. Shake Milton's still out. But for the most part, this Sixers team is one of the healthier teams in the league at this point. For what who is there and who is present based on the other teams they're matching up with. So it just has to be easier. It just has to be a simpler way done it. And it is a theme, which I think is the most important takeaway as we touch into the press conference.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. It's just like I think the issue is it wasn't a close game the whole time.
Right.
Like it was close at half. They played a good game to start, and then the Sixers started to push that lead up, and they extended themselves to a degree. Like I don't know what the largest lead was, but it was a fairly large lead at one point. You're getting up into the mid-teens. I think it was like 14 or something at one point. Right from there, late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter, you shouldn't you shouldn't blow that lead. I think what's misconstrued about the question and what gets lost in Doc's answer is that it wasn't like, it was a 91-91 game at the start of the fourth and it ended up being 115 to 112. Like, that's not how it went, or whatever, 114 to 109, I think was the final score. Like,
Yeah.
that's not how it went. It wasn't, a heavyweight fight where both teams were kind of laying punches and it was just a drag out fight. It wasn't like that. It's the extending a lead, even with your bench players, like extending a lead and then screwing it up and
Yeah.
finding a way to let a team back in. I think that's where the frustration lies, more so than like if it were just a close game in general. I think that's where I get frustrated with it.
Yeah, the largest lead the Sixers picked up was 12 in that game. But and first off, a shout out to Georges Niang because he was super necessary in that win. Tremendous. He ended with 19 points, 5 of 8 from 3, and both fit wise and just the energy and attitude he brings are super needed on the Sixer team. Like, it really is a difference with him being there. So glad to see him out of protocols and contributing again. And honestly, he was the Sixers' number 2 punch last night. I know Toby had 19 too, but Tobias Harris with his first career triple double with probably one of the worst games I've seen him play all season. Like, when the game was originally going on, I tweeted out that it was a Ben Simmons-esque triple double. He had 11 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists at that point. By the end of the game, there was more of a Russell Westbrook-esque triple double. Like, this was kind of a really bad 3 of 12 from the field, 0 of 1 from 3. The one positive I will say, he did get to the free throw line a ton, 13 of 14 from the free throw line. I do love seeing that, but really he shot the ball terribly. There were a lot of good looks and like looks that Toby should be hitting and that he goes to on a regular basis that just were not falling last night. So as much as the triple double is great, totally not a good game out of him. And I think that was a major reason too. As has been the theme like throughout the season, it's Embiid and whatever anybody can muster up as help. And Toby didn't give enough last night. That was a lot of the struggle to me. There was no second guy to pin it down. And one more, Seth Curry just does not seek his shot enough. Like, for a guy that's statistically one of the best shooters of all time, the lack of just desire to get your own shot and how content he seems with just kind of be chilling in the corner and just relaxing. And if it comes, it comes. Like, go get some mentality and just go out and find your shot. Like, you're a good enough shooter that you should be getting whatever shots you want. Go out and find it. And like, the Sixers need that. So I guess from my end, like, it was a lot of not enough help around Embiid stepping up last night.
Yeah, I mean, that's the case, it seems like
Yeah.
very, very often.
Not just last night. Yeah.
To talk about Tobias, the one thing that just drives me crazy with him, and this is something again that like we always break it down to, no matter how he's playing, he's always a great leader, right? That's kind of the foundation for Tobias. He complains more than I feel like anyone in the league at this point. Like,
Last night,
it's
especially.
it's every call. And like, you got to the line 14 times. You shot 14 free throws. It was a 13 for 14, which is a great night for him to get 13 points from the free throw line. That's huge. And as frustrating as it was to see him go 3 of 12, like, it's just not good enough. But like, he still scored 19. He still found a way to be effective. I didn't hate Tobias's performance last night. It's hard to hate a triple double. In terms of like facilitation, I actually thought he did a pretty good job. There was one really big one that frustrated me last night where he was in the post and Embiid was at like the top of the key or like free throw line area and made a really great cut to the basket where like Tobias was getting doubled towards the end of the shot clock. And instead of passing it, he just turned towards the baseline. And like, that's the one where like, although he did have 10 assists, which is a career high, that's the frustrating point for me. I'm like, just have to be a basketball player there enough to hit that pass. But I liked Tobias's game last night. He did a little bit of everything. His rebounding is important. I know rebounds kind of get like pushed out in terms of like the least important stat, which and sometimes it is. Like, you think about the empty rebounds that Drummond gets, but Harris has had to step up as a rebounder because this team is a pretty weak rebounding team. Regardless, just the fact, dude, it's like every time he misses, and I know he probably does get hit a lot to be, to give him a little bit of credit. But that it's every time. And there's times where like he stops and slows down and tries to talk to the official or makes a dramatic like pause at the end of it. And like, that is more like, if guys are seeing that, younger guys are seeing that, like, they can start getting away with that. Like, that's just not something you want to see from a guy in his position as a leader. I was disappointed in that aspect of Tobias's game more than his actual play last night.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would like to give Embiid a lot of credit for last night. I thought he did a really good job of uh the Raptors always double and triple him pretty heavily, and he did a great job of just not forcing looks, passing out of it, and just making it happen. And that really helped the offense tick as a whole. There was a lot of kind of the hockey assists that came out of it, the 3-point looks. Furkan has come alive again, which is big for this team. And
Yeah.
I mean, Toby, I'm kind of past the, like, he is who he is. Like, I think I'm a little lost in what his identity has become. And again, some of this is just how much is on his plate and how much like his role has
Yeah.
changed given the absence of Simmons, especially. But like one of the things I last year especially really liked is how I would always say Toby gets like grown man rebounds. Like he would go up and get it. I haven't seen enough of that this year, and
Yeah.
there was a little bit of last night. That's absolutely something that needs to continue when we think about like what the Sixers team needs help with. Outside of Embiid, they're fairly small. Embiid and Drummond, they're fairly small. Like there's a lot of guard play, a lot of wing play. Like when Niang's playing minutes, which we need him to do for his offense, like he's never a guy that's gonna be electric on the boards. He's a guy that's a generous power forward. And if it wasn't for kind of his lumpiness and minivan build, like he probably would be a wing type player and just the way he plays. So I would love to see Toby continue to put an emphasis on the board, and that honestly is a way bigger deal than it has been made out to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely. Tobias is wearing a lot of hats this year, and I do want to give him credit for trying to maneuver that and figure that out. The facilitation that we've seen, he's tried to grow in that aspect, and that could be a reason for his kind of lack of decision making. Like his decisiveness has gone down. Maybe it's because they're asking him to do a little bit more as a facilitator because he's in positions the way Ben was, and obviously isn't the natural facilitator that Ben is. Um, but like okay, and again, I'm giving a lot of people credit that I normally take credit away from. Doc did a really good job of breaking that 3-2 press. Like, let's talk about that for a minute. There was 3 straight possessions because in
Mhm.
that 3-2, they set Tobias on one elbow, Joel on the other elbow, get it into Tobias, and just like there's no one big enough on that roster right now to guard Embiid one on one. Like Chris Boucher
Right.
is probably has like I don't know, Embiid probably has like 100 pounds on him the way that they're built up.
Mhm.
And they did
Chris
a really good
Boucher
job there.
Chris Boucher, who turns into prime MJ every single time the Sixers play
Dude,
him. Last night he ended with 28 and 19, which is absolutely absurd for a guy who's just such like an average NBA player in general.
yeah.
It blows my mind every single time he plays the Sixers.
Yeah, and what he was 5 of 6 from 3, like, and I think he made all
Yeah,
5, like, in the 4th quarter, if I'm not wrong, maybe 4 of the 5 in the 4th quarter, like
yeah, 5 of 7, but the little over the head shot, it gets me every single time.
I know, and, like, it always looks like it's going in, I mean, maybe because it more often
It
than not
does.
does go in against the Sixers, but, like, every time he chucks it up, I'm like, "Wow, I can't believe he's knocking down threes against us," but they did a really good job there. Tobias, that's where he picked up, I think, 3 straight assists or at least 2 or 3 right there,
Mhm.
with that. I don't know, man, it's a conundrum at this point, like, every time you look at that stat line on paper, take out the field goal percentage, and you're like, "Wow, that's a great game from Tobias, 19, 10, and 11." But then, like, you see 3 of 12, and you're like, "Okay, well, maybe it wasn't that great of a game." And I don't know, man. They're really struggling in a lot of ways to just find that like the security. And I felt like Tobias used to be that as a
Yeah.
scorer, kind of coming in, settling everything down, even in the bench unit when he's that main scorer. Like he's able to come in and do that, and he's been struggling to find that. So I think that's where they kind of fall off offensively. Like you can't let a team go. I mean, I know like big runs happen and a 22-9 run happens in the NBA, but like again, these are guys like should not be uh in the running with them. I thought Paul Reed did a nice job though last night. If you wanted to talk about him,
Yeah, I've been a big Paul Reed guy for a while.
yeah,
I love just giving him minutes, and last night was a game that kind of matched up with his ability. Just with like the Raptors are really building this identity of just getting long, athletic guys, and I mean their roster pretty much top to bottom is built like that. That's a large reason why I do think Seth Curry was or ineffective. Really, is because of he struggles and can get swallowed up by guys with the long arms and the athletic and the wings and gets chased off the line pretty easy, and he just struggles to get a shot off. So to be fair, I do think that's a lot of the reason for that, but I still would like some more aggressiveness out of it. But Paul Reed is right in that kind of mold of players, and he's a guy that's so weird to box into what exactly he does. But like you just see like the energy, the effort, the way he runs around, sprints. Like it to me, I do just keep seeing something. And I mean, he ended with 14 points. I mean, 14 minutes, 3 points, 2 rebounds. 3 rebounds, 1 assist, nothing crazy, 1 block, 1 steal, and that's a pretty good like Paul Reed stat
Yeah.
line. It's like that's what you're asking for him to do is run around, do the little things. He brings the energy, he brings the effort. He's a guy that I just love as a change of pace. It's a game that like even if Andre Drummond was healthy, I think that would have been a game that he really struggled in just based on like how much athleticism is out there. And Paul Reed needs to continue to be developed to be a guy that can be an option for games like that.
Yeah, absolutely. He like I bet you the Raptors are like, I wish we had Paul Reed
Yeah,
or
he
we would
fits
love him
exactly what
here.
they're doing. Yeah.
And like you saw in later in the fourth quarter when or like I guess towards the mid late part of the fourth quarter, like Paul Reed came in and he took on Pascal Siakam for a few possessions defensively. And like everyone else struggled with Pascal Siakam all night. Like Niang's not quick enough to hang with him. Embiid is Embiid and he's great defensively, but like he's not going to hang with a guy on the perimeter the entire night. Tobias couldn't handle him. Like I don't know why. I don't know what like why Pascal Siakam goes off, but like he did, and he's a good player. But Paul Reed came in, took away basically their main offensive option for the night for a couple possessions. I wish I saw that more last night. He's a bit like I don't even know, just clumsy and a little bit crazy on the court.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a welcomed chaos. I feel like for the Sixers at times they need a little bit more of the guy that's going to fly around and maybe not get the rebound, but tip it up 3 or 4 times and make everyone
Yeah.
aware of what's happening. And that's I think that's welcomed chaos for the Sixers because they just don't have anyone else. Maybe Matisse that does that, but just in a Matisse is much more like controlled and tactical with the way that he does those things. And Paul Reed's just kind of he sees the ball and he's like a dog, like he just runs and tries to get it. So I liked the Paul Reed minutes last night.
Yeah, he's a guy that I just can't like take my eyes off out there. Like there's a play I think it was in the second quarter where it was just like a random kind of ball squirting around it near like mid court, and he's just on the floor diving for it,
Yeah,
rolling around. I'm just like, yeah, I love this guy. Like I love
yeah,
what he's doing and that. So I'm thrilled. I hope Paul Reed continues to get chances. I like that they went to him over Bassey last night too. Like that's something that we haven't seen. Uh, like pretty much since Bassey's kind of emerged, he's kind of taken all those minutes, and that is something that's like I worry down the line is going to stunt like the development of Reed. I would also really like for him to continue to develop as a four and learn how to play as like a not the primary big man because I do think that would open things up. We saw a little bit earlier in the season of him starting alongside Embiid. I would love to see more of that. I would love for Reed to kind of just be the guy that can do the little things, and I think he's capable of that. So I'm all for it. I'm happy he got the minutes last night, and B-ball Paul, I just want to keep seeing it happen.
yeah, yeah. And I think it will. Like I know it's kind of a work in progress, but I think he's gonna keep getting there. But I want to circle back because we talked a lot about the Doc and Keith Pompey
Yeah, I want to talk
thing
more.
that happened, but we didn't actually really like go into it. So you couldn't on the broadcast you couldn't really hear the question, but the assumption is that the question was about like why didn't you beat this team by like 20 points? Like why aren't you blowing this team out?
Yeah,
The,
I think the question was, were you satisfied with that win? Was the initial one, and then
okay.
they went back and forth, and
So
then
like that's not
yeah,
a,
go ahead.
so let's begin there. That's not an out of bounds question at all. That
Absolutely
is
not.
not
Yeah.
out of bounds in any sort of way. You hear that question and much worse, probably regularly in a post game presser. Like that's
Mhm.
that's a regular question. Doc answers that with I don't have the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of like, "Are you kidding me?" He's even said that's a dumbass question. I don't understand why you'd ask me that. This is the NBA. You can't just script out a win. You can't just say, "Oh, tonight we're gonna win by 30. It's gonna be super easy. These guys are all playing every day. It's the highest level of basketball. I can't believe you'd ask me that question." Basically, is what I got from that. Very dismissive, pretty rude. Addressed
Yeah.
him by name a couple times and was basically just like, it kind of to me, it felt like, fuck off, Keith. Like, don't ask me that again. And
Yeah, no, definitely. And first off, totally agree. Not an out of bounds question whatsoever. And for like from Doc, if you genuinely believe like I'm cool with that win, there's a bigger issue here. Like if that's what you really believe, like there are bigger takeaways than just a win and loss in every single game. And last night was a prime example. And the thing that can't be brushed over is it's not like it hasn't been a common theme with Sixers of like letting teams hang around, letting teams that are far less on as far as the injury front and guys off. Like last night, they're without Fred VanVleet, Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby. Their top 3 scorers aren't there. Multiple other big time contributors aren't there. That's a game the Sixers need to just grab by the horns and like put away, and it didn't happen. And like that has to be at least acknowledged by Doc Rivers. And it was super dismissive on his part for everything. And like as a coach, if there is like a stupid question that you don't like, it's so simple to A, give just like a basic answer and move on. And B, what's wrong with just like all right, next question and move on. To then go and back and forth and just like combatively fight with the guy about it and calling it a dumbass question, calling it silly, saying it miffed him off, all these little like things. I also hate the and this is like something Doc Rivers does fairly regularly. He even slipped in at one point, like he's like, just you asking that question means you just like haven't played long enough. And it's like, dude, that is not a part of this. Like nobody's questioning that you've played and have been around basketball more. The question is getting a window into what your thought process is. And Keith Pompey is 100% doing his job for like just trying to find out what you think about that. And he for sure has had stupider questions asked to him, and I just haven't seen a reaction like that. So it was really strange to me that it happened and that he did get so fired up over that. And I do 100% think it was a fair question. So I'm glad he asked it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I laughed at it. I thought it was funny. I don't know how I would personally come back from like getting disrespected like that at my job. Like Keith Pompey's been around for a while, and I know that
Long
there's
time.
been
Yeah.
some back and forth between Doc and Keith Pompey before. Like it happened very early on this season, asking about Ben stuff, and I'm sure like I know that that is probably built on Doc a lot. This year, like there's just been a lot of turmoil since he's been here, understandably, and let's not be naive, a lot of it being his fault. So like that's where my problem is like, yeah, you kind of welcome this. You stepped into a situation knowing where you're coaching in terms of the media, the city, the fans, everything. You stepped in here knowing that.
Hmm.
If you've been around the game long enough, you know what Philadelphia is. And I get frustrated with that. So you can't get like bent out of shape over it. And then on top of that, like I don't know, like at some degree, like right there, you're almost a colleague with that guy. You're helping him do his job. So I don't necessarily think that like my assumption is that there's a little bit of beef. Probably Doc probably doesn't like answering Keith Pompey's questions as is. Um and like this is kind of a way for him to just be like, don't ask me dumb shit. But like I don't think Keith Pompey was being like conniving or trying to
Yeah.
like be any sort of way about it. It seemed like a question that he was like, this is something that happens. Are you really satisfied with that win? And to me, like, I don't know if Doc Rivers, I'd be like, we can be better. That's like if you wanted to go generic, a really good way to do that is just be like, we could be better. That's what everyone always says. So like, we're not satisfied with that win, but I guess at the end of the day, that the thing that and the only way that I kind of like, I don't know, feel with Doc here is like, it is true. It's a it is an NBA game on Tuesday night in Toronto on the road. It's been a weird season. Those type of games happen, but like the sentiment to me is okay in terms of like it's the NBA. These games happen, but the reaction was like
Yeah.
very out of bounds.
Yeah, like the bottom line of what Doc is saying, I do agree with. Like a win is a win, and he's right about that. At the end of the day,
Yeah,
that is what matters. But it just like to me, it just seems there must be something there because it just seems so like that was the first question of the media
yeah.
session, and also like uh looking past it, like Embiid acknowledged how they didn't play well. A couple other guys said how it wasn't like their best game,
Tobias.
that kind of thing. Tobias, yeah, all these guys are wearing it on their shoulders. Like, why can't? It's not that hard to do, Doc. Like it doesn't take that difficult to reply. And I don't know. It was very strange to me, very like unexpected and kind of out of nowhere. But I definitely don't think Pompey had any like ill intentions with the question. I still think it's fair and something that I do hope that there are bigger takeaways on Doc's mind than just winning that game when it does come down to it. And that was kind of his fluff answer, which there's nothing wrong with saying that either. Like a basic answer back and not getting fired up and no, this is a non-issue. Nobody talks about it, and I don't know. It's very confusing to me how it just
Yeah.
blew up so quickly, but it was entertaining
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on with him because he seems irritable on like all fronts.
for sure.
Like
I
in
think there's,
game,
I-
he almost seems checked out at times, and like a reaction like that is from someone that like if he like really didn't care that much, like that's almost what you expect. Like, how could you question me? Like I'm Doc Rivers. Like
mhm.
of course I expect to win. Like that kind of thing. Like I don't know. He comes off with that type of vibe sometimes, and like maybe it just hurt his ego. I don't even know. Like you said, it's a very strange interaction.
Yeah, I think he's kind of when Doc first got here, like there was kind of like a refreshing kind of like suave and like charismatic kind of charm to it. And I
Yeah.
think has worn out very quickly. Like I think nobody in any of the media sessions really having it at that point. Like when he gets to his little like say his little joke and chuckle saying and ha 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 laugh along, like that doesn't really fly anymore. Like everybody can kind of see through that. And I think from Doc's perspective, like there is a part of him that's definitely like over this. Like when we think about the circumstances that he's dealing with, which I don't care how long you've been around, like nobody has had to come into the NBA and get a swab up their nose every single day and deal with the Ben Simmons off the court John. Like there's a lot going on that kind of I don't think he fully expected to sign up for. And I think there's like I think there's a lot of them that's just like I'm old, like I'm still doing this. I'm getting paid $8 million to coach basketball, so I will continue to do it. But like I don't know, I don't think his heart is fully in it anymore, which you hate to see it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard to speculate because there's not that much availability to him, but I don't know, the way I've heard him talk and over the last couple years compared to before, and the way he was such a willing, like, outspoken person for so many things and so many
Yeah.
reasons, and it just doesn't seem like that's there. And the only time you see fire from him is when a question pisses him off in a post game press conference, and like that's concerning as a fan to see your coach. Like I don't know, man. There's just so many times that you look over at the bench or the camera pans over to the bench, and it just doesn't seem like he cares. Like he's just like looking around. And I saw a video the other day, and someone was like giving him credit for they were playing defense. I forget which game it was. It might have been like Miami or something, but they were playing defense, and there was a couple seconds left. It was going to come down to the last possession, and he was starting to draw up a play. Doc was
Oh yeah.
on the sideline, and it was like they gave him like a ton of credit, and it's like so he got an extra 30 seconds to drop a play that didn't work. Like congrats. Most of the time, coaches can do that or already have a play in mind for that situation. It's like I don't know. It just seems like he is a guy that gets credit for shit like that when and I gave him credit for breaking the 3-2 zone, which he deserves. The Raptors do that
Mhm.
very well. But let's not be stupid. Like the Raptors have played a 3-2 zone against the Sixers every time they've seen them in the last 2 years. And
Yeah,
it took him probably until matchup number 6 to figure it out. Like I don't know.
and the Sixers have still struggled a great deal against
Yeah.
zones so far this year. So there's like last night. Unfortunately, I feel like last night was like an outlier in that, not kind of the theme. And they
Yeah.
have seen more kind of 2-3 zones more so than 3-2 this year. Which I mean, again, it's subtle differences, but it still does matter when you're scheming against it and figuring out what to do. Uh, my frustration with Doc, and I mean this has been since he's been here, for a guy that puts his hat on how much basketball he's been around, how much basketball he's coached, how much basketball he knows. It's so frustrating me just the lack of feel for a game and just adjustments on the fly. Like has his script and sticks to it. And you just can't coach like that all the time. Like there has to be in-game feels for like when a guy has it going or doesn't have it going and adjusting minutes for he plays more, he plays with him more, take him out. Like just a little on the fly. And that's so frustrating me that I don't see that enough. And I mean, I don't you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So I don't expect Doc to kind of I mean, he has his all his accomplishments that he will also set his hat on. He has the one championship with the Celtics and but there is plenty to not be happy about with this guy. And there were like the whispers when he was with the Clippers of all like the him cancel practice to go golf and stuff like that. And there's just lots of like I wish this guy his heart was fully in it a little bit more. And I hope he finds the fire. Like I do think once this roster is finalized that some sort of trade does happen, like the outlook on this team, the outlook for everybody changes a great deal. And I think Doc will be included on that. Like, I think he knows now he's kind of, as it is kind of a first round exit type of playoff team and a low end kind of playoff team. So I hope when there is the reinforcements are coming and this roster is finalized that there is some rejuvenation within him. And not that the team isn't fighting hard, but I think everybody needs a little kick in the butt with that. And I hope it happens.
Yeah. I mean, here's to hoping for sure. I mean, I don't know though. He looked like he was checked out last playoffs, and they were the number 1 seed, and whatever. It's whatever. I'm not a fan of Doc. Where I don't think either of us are at this point. It's
Yeah.
been a long time with him, and it feels like it's been forever. And he's only been here for a year and a half. But to move on, do you want to talk about the Wizards game really quick?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't have anything crazy on it. The biggest thing and it sucks that this Raptors game is now right on the heels in it because I had so many like positive takeaways about them just like taking care of business and like making it like the business like win is how I put it. Like this was the
Yeah.
first kind of like top to bottom all season that it's like we're better than this team. We're going to win this game and we're going to make sure it's by like a handily amount. Both the second and third quarter, they kind of blew the game open. Another very impressive Embiid performance. Uh, yeah, I was super thrilled with just kind of the mindset changes in that one. So I was very disappointed to see it kind of slip back in this Raptors game.
Yeah, yeah. The Wizards game was fun to watch. Honestly, it was a good game. This
Mhm.
I feel like everyone on the Sixers played well. That was the first game Furkan came back and looked like he had a little bit extra in him. The Montrezl Harrell thing was
Oh
pretty
yeah,
funny. I thought
yeah,
that was funny because it was blown up by Harrell. Like Embiid got
yeah,
grabbed and pulled, and like if you really go watch that replay, like Embiid ran into him, but only because he was being tugged. Like his jersey was being pulled, and like he was already like losing his balance because he got fouled by Harrell. Like, and then Harrell got all tough guy on him and started barking and whatever. And Embiid like really stood there and was like, "No, like I'm good." Like, and then
yeah.
what was it? A possession and a half later, it's
It was like literally the first play down, the Sixers him
yeah,
screaming over his shoulder, and from the start of it, like I really think Embiid, most of what he was doing was just trying to get his balance. Like he was tripping all over
yeah,
the place, like searching for something to grab onto, and I
yeah,
think Harold just totally blew that up. And I mean, you do kind of expect it. Like this isn't Montrezl Harrell and Embiid are both kind of guys that aren't back down people, and there is no one in the NBA that can out troll Joel Embiid. And I absolutely love the the screaming over the shoulder. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he got the reaction he was looking for. Harold, easy money with that. So I love having Embiid as a Sixer. I know if he was on another team, I think I would absolutely hate the guy. But
yeah,
I'm so happy he's ours and that he does live and die like yeah. And I mean, he got the better of Harold. The he talked about like early on in the game how Harold was like talking about he's not doing anything. And he's like, dude, I got like 26 points in whatever minutes already. And he's like, I don't
yeah,
like I don't know how you can talk trash when Embiid like totally had it going that game, like start to finish. He ended with uh 36 again, 36 and 13. Like just a top to bottom, like great game. That he scored the first 8 points for the game. That little spin
yeah,
on the first bucket of the game was absurd, and just like you can't
yeah.
talk trash on a guy like that when he is just straight up cooking you. And Harold keeps trying.
Yeah, and that was funny. I laughed at that on his way out. Like Harold on his way out was yelling like, "You ain't done shit all night," and it's like, really? Like,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
he just scored his like 27th and 28th point, going to the free throw line for an extra one,
yeah,
and you're on your way out of the game. It's the third quarter. Like, I don't know why he was, why he was still talking, but I mean that's the way it goes with him. And then after the game in Harold's post game, he was like telling Embiid to stand on his toughness, and if
yeah,
you're gonna be tough, don't like flop and act like I did something crazy. It was like, nah, man, like you were in your feelings, you were emotional, you got pissed and pushed and beat, and he was actually at the free throw line like giggling at you as you walked off the court. Like, so I don't know. That's I mean, to be fair, that's got to sting a little bit. It's got to hurt in the locker room knowing like you're all fired up and he doesn't care at all. Like he's still out there.
yeah.
So I don't know.
For sure. He's so awesome at it. I do miss like
Yeah.
the Twitter fingers, Joel, where he would even like carry it on post game. It is a good thing that he has like matured past that, but I do just miss like a nice tweet out of like Harold grabbing him or a picture of that or something. Just would have been awesome to me. But
Yeah.
I there again, there's nobody in the league that can out troll Joel Embiid. Like it's just awesome the way he does. And like he knew he was fully in control of that situation the whole time, even when they were like face to face. Like Embiid had like a dad grip on him, like holding him
Yeah.
back, and even
Yeah.
getting pulled away with like the it's good. Like
Yeah.
he's such like in control of the situation, and I mean I absolutely love it. The it's so awesome. Like the literally the first play possession down, getting Harold kicked out of the game is so funny.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, that's just it was nice to see Embiid back in that frame of mind. I would like the old Drummond Embiid days when they would play against each other. Embiid would
Yeah,
dominate, and
cat.
then yeah, cat, all that stuff. Very funny. Another funny moment last night after the game was Embiid calling Maxey trash in the post
Yeah,
game, and then he was
yeah.
like looking. He was like, "Some nights you have good nights, other nights you're like Tyrese." It's like, damn, dude. Very. I mean, good to see that they have a good relationship, though.
Yeah, no, they were laughing the whole time, and Maxie's like, "Bro, I airballed twice tonight." Like he was like feeding right into it. So
Yeah.
I do love that like the chemistry is building there, and I hope it equates more on court. Definitely not a good Maxey game at all last night. So I obviously hope things turn out better there. But I do think it's cool that their relationship seems to be building. And I do think that this team is starting, now that everyone's back, like there does, I am getting the feeling that there's more of like a gelling in it together than there has been for several weeks now. So that's good to see.
Yeah, hopefully it gets better. I mean, it can only get better. It started out really good, right? And then obviously everything kind of fell apart, but hopefully from now on they're healthy. They can stay healthy. Everyone can stay in the lineup and available. They do play tomorrow night against now the fully healthy Nets, who are on a tear and
Mhm.
best record in the East right now. What are you seeing from that game? Is tomorrow at 6?
Yeah, I don't feel great about it. I mean, the Nets with all three, with Kyrie, KD, and Harden back, are a scary team, and I think probably the number one title threat in the NBA. If those guys are fully healthy, I don't see anybody beating them. As great as Phoenix and Golden State and all these teams look, I don't see anybody beating the Nets if they play up to their ability. Uh, yeah, I think tonight will or tomorrow will be a little bit of a wake up call. But when you look past that, there's a lot of winnable games like on the horizon. So I do think there's a chance for the Sixers to build some momentum and start to separate themselves from like kind of the grouping and the muck of teams that is like in the middle of the Eastern Conference right now. So I do think tomorrow will be a little rough, but moving past that, they're in not a bad spot.
Yeah, and they like, this is a 3-game road trip and like another stretch of games on the road. They're at least going to come out of it 2 or 3. Even though yesterday was ugly, like they said, it's still a win. Doesn't really matter what the score was. You still got to win. You got to win in Washington, and then you close out this road trip in Brooklyn, which is going to be a tough game. It's going to
Mhm.
be. I think it's going to be a good game though. Like we've seen the Sixers kind of play down to their competition a lot recently, whether it be like Miami and Atlanta, who they lost to, with depleted rosters, to now that you do beat the Wizards and you do beat the Raptors. Maybe here's a chance to play up to your competition, and even if you lose a game like that, but it's close and you're in the game throughout the majority of it with a fully healthy Nets team, it could be a momentum builder. We talk about bad wins. Yesterday is a bad win. You could have a good loss
Mhm.
tomorrow if they play well, or I mean, a great win. So
Yeah.
as long as you don't get blown out, you stick in that game. You don't let them just like completely take over and look terrible. I think you could be building momentum even with a loss tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch Embiid play too. I feel like he is now like fully has his footing under him. He's turned
Yeah.
his own and has turned into like the Joel Embiid that we've been hoping for like all season. And I think he is going to step up to the challenge and be ready to play tomorrow. So if you can keep the Sixers in it, that would be very impressive. And I think he's going to be ready for the moment. So I'm excited to see what he does.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you have anything else, you're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right,
Yeah,
then we're gonna wrap it up here. We're gonna have another one on Friday. I may or may not be around. Otherwise, Sean will be with David Esser on Friday, morning, afternoon. So
yeah,
stay tuned for that. Check that out. Check us out at the Twitter, PickSwap Pod. Same thing with the YouTube, and follow us anywhere you get your podcast, whether it be Spotify or iTunes. And we'll talk to you guys soon.